What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of stuff to really talk to you about today. We have this area of interest that is continuing to for the probabilities to increase, as well as more information of where the system is going to be coming from to share with you guys today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So here's the situation that we have right here. We currently have a 10% risk for Invest 90L. It is currently off the coast of North Carolina, and overall, I am not too worried about it anymore, mainly because it's no longer a threat to land, and it is expected to fade out and fizzle out in the next day or so. It's not going to be a big threat unless you're in Florida, which saw very record flooding right there. There was a state of emergency declared by Governor DeSantis, especially Miami-Dade County, and that I'm not sure where else it was declared, but that's from what I heard last time. So things are getting pretty interesting down there. We'll have to pay attention to that. But what's also getting more attention right here is this area of interest right here. We now have a 50% chance of formation in the next 7 days. This is in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Campeche. A broad area of low pressure is forecast to form over the southwestern Gulf of Mexico later this week or early next week. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system, and a tropical depression could form during the early to middle part of next week as it moves slowly westward or west-northwestward. 50% chance of formation in the next 7 days. So that's what we're paying attention to right here. We have a lot of factors going for a possible development at this current point. I said in yesterday's video, and I will say it again, this is a hurricane contender. And the reason I believe this is a hurricane contender is due to a few factors. But before we get into that, you guys may not have caught it in yesterday's video towards near the end, but in case you guys didn't know, we are out of the El Nino. That's right, we are out of the El Nino. We were out of the El Nino yesterday. We are now officially in a neutral phase of the El Nino. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have to keep a very close eye on it as of right now. So we'll have to pay very close attention as well. So here's the situation that we have right here. It is currently in the neutral phase. It is expected to get to an El Nino by late July up to mid-August, and that'll be just in time for hurricane season to really ramp up. And this is forecast to be around a weak to moderate La Nina as we get into the start of hurricane season, which is absolutely what we do not want to see for the following reasons. Number one, what a weak La Nina does is it strengthens the Bermuda High and it allows for a stronger pressure gradient to allow for cyclones to move towards the Caribbean Sea, towards land, towards the United States, and all those areas. And that's absolutely what we don't need, especially as of right now. I mean, we kind of got lucky in 2023, but if it pushes into the Caribbean, it's going to be moving through some of the best conditions I have ever seen. And this is already the month of June right now. Imagine what it's going to be like in 2 months. That's going to be absolutely insane. And another thing that I am worried about as well is what the La Nina does is it weakens the trade winds and it weakens the wind shear, which will allow for the possibility of more hurricanes, more tropical waves to organize and develop as we continue to get further into the hurricane season. I know the monsoon season is a little bit slow in the Sahel region of north of Africa, like in the near the tropical African area right there, like you know where West Central Africa is, and those areas right there. It's overall, it is a little bit slow, but there are indications that it is ramping up, so we'll have to pay attention to that as the La Nina continues to take effect. So this is the situation that we have right here for the climatology. You can see we have a lot more below averages right here than above averages right here. That's why we're in the neutral phase. We can also go ahead and show you, as of right here, the analysis tools with the ocean analysis that we have pulled up right here. Regions 1 and 2, yeah, they're well in La Nina territory. Regions 3 and 4, they're in that neutral territory right there. That's why they triggered the neutral phase right then and there. Region 4 is still a bit holding out a little bit. Region 3 is starting to increase just a little bit. It's in that neutral area. Overall, from what I'm looking at, yeah, it's a losing like I said before, the El Nino was fighting a losing battle, and now that that battle is over, we can now move on to a neutral phase, and we can now talk about big hurricane totals. Speaking of which, we had a new forecast coming in right here. We have the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season right there. From what I heard, at least with David Schlauer, I guess it's not. I guess it's not here just yet on the page. But from what he was telling me with the University of Pennsylvania, they were looking at 24 to 41 named storms. Apparently, from what I've heard, that might have been the old forecast right there. 29 to 41 named storms, 12 to 18 hurricanes, and 6 to 11 major hurricanes. Personally, I don't know how realistic that whole thing is, but I do think it's kind of interesting to kind of talk about because we're all looking at a very active hurricane season this year, and we absolutely need to prepare for what's going on. But what we also need to prepare for is what this tropical cyclone is going to be doing in the Bay of Campeche. That's going to really set the tempo to what we're going to be seeing the rest of the hurricane season. So here's the situation that we have right here. Here's the global sea temperatures as of June 14th, 2024. 30 plus degrees Celsius across much of the Bay of Campeche, across Texas and Louisiana. We're seeing 30 plus degrees Celsius waters really starting to ramp up across a lot of these areas. We're seeing more concentrated 30 plus degrees Celsius waters across the Caribbean Sea over here. 30 degrees Celsius, for those of you who do not know who live in the United States, is 86 plus degree Fahrenheit for whenever I'm talking about this. I use official units with this, and I convert it as convenient because the U.S., Burma, and Liberia are the only 3 countries that do not use the metric system. But anyway, this is what we have right here. A lot of very warm water to deal with. We have 28 and 26 degrees Celsius waters that are around the Cancun region over here in the Yucatan Peninsula. That's to be expected right there. It's always going to be cooler because it's outside of the loop current. It's kind of outside of every single eddy that it's around, and it's just overall a cooler region to look at right then and there. So that's what we're paying attention to with the global sea temperatures right there. And it's also going to speak volumes and be a big indicator what happens in the next couple of months, primarily because what we're going to be seeing is we're going to have a rapid surge of warm waters to deal with across a lot of these regions. Here's what we have going on right here. We already are seeing that surge. This is the North Atlantic. Yeah, we're almost at 23 degrees Celsius already in the month of June, which as you can see based off of these the average and the standard deviation right here, we're already way above average, and this is kind of contending with 2023 global sea temperatures right here. And I do believe that it's going to be even warmer than what we were seeing last year. This right here is the reason why the El Nino had no effect on the amount of storms that the hurricane season allowed. Because what those SST anomalies did was it essentially crushed the El Nino and essentially had no effect. The El Nino had a little bit of an effect with weakening the Bermuda High and all that stuff and keeping things away from land, thankfully, unless it was like Hurricane Idalia right there. However, this is not going to be the case. We're moving into a La Nina. We're already in a neutral phase, so we're going to have to continue to keep a very close eye on it as we continue to see more of this information come in. That's the global sea temperatures. Ocean heat content is also alarmingly scary, to say the very least, especially in the Bay of Campeche. We're looking at 75 to 100 OHC as of right now, and across much of the Atlantic Ocean, we're seeing values well over 100 OHC. We weren't even seeing this already last year. Matter of fact, we can go ahead and go to June 14th of last year just to compare to you right here. It's going to take me a second to do that, but I want to show you just to kind of compare what we were looking at least at this point last year. So this is June 14th, 2023. This is what we were looking at. We were looking at a huge flare-up of OHC in parts of the Caribbean Sea, but overall, not as much as what we were looking at already this year. And it wasn't nearly as thick in the loop current, which is what's really concerning, to say the very least, right there. And it wasn't as far north. It is a little bit further north now because, again, there hasn't been very many hurricanes that enter the Caribbean Sea and everything like that. And just we're seeing a lot of huge anomalies that we do not want to see. So that's what we were seeing last year. This is what we are seeing this year. This is what we were seeing this year right here. Boom. A lot more green, a lot more blue everywhere, and a lot more orange and red everywhere. So that's why I'm so concerned about this, because we're reaching historic OHC levels, historic global sea temperature levels, which is what we absolutely do not want to see in 2024. I've been raising concerns about this since October of last year. that this is going to be a very bad hurricane season because we're going to see a transition to La Nina. We're not seeing the global sea temperatures, the sea surface temperatures, and the OHC cool off as what we were wanting to in the Caribbean Sea because there weren't any hurricanes that crossed into that region over there outside of the Lesser Antilles region over there. We weren't seeing any of that. And with the dry air, yeah, there's not going to be very much dry air that's going to intrude this year because we're already seeing a lot more moisture, a lot more precipitation that's affecting the atmosphere than what we were seeing last year. And the Sahara dust has been pretty much a non-factor in all of this. I mean, yeah, there's still dry air and everything like that. It's still going to be a very persistent issue for the next couple of months. But I would say by late July, that's going to become less prevalent, and we're going to have bigger issues to deal with. Starting with the wind shear right here. This is the wind shear values that we have right here. Bay of Campeche, you don't have very much wind shear. I mean, there is a little bit that's starting to intrude in parts of the not the Caribbean, but the Gulf of Mexico over here. That was to be expected according to the forecasts. By the time we start seeing organization and development, we're going to have a situation where things are going to rapidly escalate, and we're going to have things really ramp up, and we're going to start seeing this wind shear just decrease on average. We're going to start seeing a lot more fluctuations as we get into the second half of this month, especially as we get into July, and then by August, we're not going to have very much wind shear to deal with at that current point. And matter of fact, we can go ahead and show you the short-term shear forecast that we have pulled up for you right now, courtesy of the European model. I always use this for the shear and moisture forecast just because of how accurate they are. So that's the European that we have pulled up. Yeah, there is going to be a bit more shear that intrudes the Bay of Campeche over here, but that's not going to hinder tropical development because it lifts out of the Bay of Campeche by the time the low pressure system organizes and develops right there. But it does start to collapse and weaken in other sectors right over there. We can actually go ahead and go to North Atlantic wide to kind of show you what we're looking at least with this right here. And you're going to start seeing this stuff really ramp up. You're starting to see the main development region around June 19th have low wind shear over here, which is something you absolutely need to pay attention to, especially later down the road as we start to see more of these tropical waves organize and develop and everything like that. And you're going to see this situation where the eastern part of the main development region will have low wind shear, and that could open the possibility for an MDR tropical cyclone to organize and develop and possibly impact the Antilles, as the Azores high and the Bermuda high is still pretty strong. It's going to keep things south and keep things away from the United States, at least for now, and at least until we get into a couple of months into the future. So that's what we have going on right there. Let's go ahead and show you the moisture forecast to kind of compare this whole thing right here, not just what we're looking at the Bay of Campeche, but also the situation in the main development region. Starting with the Bay of Campeche, because that is the most imminent threat coming up. Like I said before, the European is still forecasting a massive moisture plume to just really eject from Central America and the Eastern Pacific and allow for great conditions for this thing to organize and develop. And I've said this before, and I will say it again. This, to me, looks like a hurricane contender, primarily because we are seeing really good conditions in the Bay of Campeche with more moisture, water temperature, and ocean heat content, as well as wind shear. And ultimately, if it can really ramp up and organize and strengthen, I shouldn't really say anything less about that. This whole thing speaks for itself. And as we get into the main development region, yeah, there's going to be some Sahara dust that's going to intrude and kind of affect it for a little bit. But as we get later into the forecast, you're going to see a larger plume of moist air going on over here, which I think is pretty interesting over here. I want to take a look at the vorticity of this right there. Yeah, there is a little bit of vorticity, but overall, I'm not seeing that strong of a signal over there. Still something to pay attention to, but yeah, that's what I am going to be taking a look at. But now moving back to the Bay of Campeche over here, we're going to go ahead and point all the stuff that you need to know and all the impacts that we are looking at based on the models that we have right now. This is the European forecast. Do not expect things to start organizing and developing for the next 4 to 5 days as of right now. And what we're seeing, which is I'm looking at from late new model runs, is pretty interesting. What we're seeing is a combination of the Eastern Pacific area of interest, which we can go ahead and kind of show you right here. Yeah, it's this thing right here. I wouldn't expect this to last much longer. It's already at a 0% probability, but the energy from this and the Central American gyre, which is over here, is going to combine and allow for a broad area of low pressure initially to organize and develop, and then start to strengthen as the pressure gradient starts to tighten. And the European model is pretty interesting, to say the very least. It's now showing a greater threat to Texas than it has been in past model runs, which I think is interesting, although Mexico still looks like the main threat as of right now. But there is a greater threat in Texas, especially in the Houston area, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, that area that's now closer to the strongest wind gradient. We'll have to pay very close attention to that as more information continues to come out and as these model runs continue to trickle in. The second this is tagged in Invest, I would fully suspect that we're going to start seeing some hurricane forecast models be activated, like the HWRF, the HMON, the HAVS models, and we'll give you more of a better grasp of what we're potentially looking at compared to what we were just seeing previously. Now we're going to go ahead and show you the GFS model. We're going to show you both the 0Z and the 12Z model because I want to kind of be fair here because the European doesn't have the 12Z out yet. I wish it would go a little faster. Unfortunately, that's not how operational forecasting works. I wish it did, but it's not. But here's the GFS right here. GFS 0Z has a broad area of circulation, just organizing and developing. Tropical storm strength impacting much of Mexico, as well as causing a lot of rainfall and gusty winds in Texas in this area right there. Overall, things are getting pretty interesting. GFS also wants the system to kind of organize and just stall over here. Okay, this is not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I can guarantee you that we're not going to see a major hurricane stall off the coast of Texas and then make landfall in the Houston area. That's ridiculous. That's not going to happen unless there's like a blocking high over here in Colorado that's going to allow that, kind of like what Harvey did. Here's the 12Z run right there. GFS has kind of been a little iffy with it recently. The GFS pushed it further north. Now it's pushing further south. So there is still quite a bit of uncertainty as to what's going to happen with this, but I do believe as of right now that there is a pretty big risk with this just because of how much moisture is going to be injected into this. The wind shear is going to be very low. There's going to be a lot of sea surface temperatures and ocean heat content to pay attention to. So overall, I am paying very close attention to this as of right now, so we need to take this very, very seriously as of right now. Next model we're going to show you is the Canadian model, the CMC, as it's said. CMC is pretty interesting because it has this low pressure system organizing as in the Central American gyre over here, and then making landfall in Belize and Mexico over here, and then moving into the Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico, starting to rapidly organize and intensify as it makes landfall in Mexico over here, causing some heavy rainfall in parts of Texas over there, but overall more localized in Mexico. So there is still a bit of uncertainty dealing with this. Canadian model also wants a tropical storm right afterward to make landfall in parts of Louisiana over here. Too early to tell, in my opinion. There's too much uncertainty to deal with, so we'll have to pay close attention to it right now. Well, the Navgem we'll have to pay attention to as well. Navgem is doing a similar situation. Broad low pressure system that starts to really tighten up as that wind shear kind of helps with the orientation and helps strengthen the outflow before making landfall in Mexico right there, while still causing some heavy rainfall in parts of Texas over there. Navgem wants a system right afterward to organize and develop in the Gulf of Mexico. It's too far out to determine what's going to happen next. Next model we're showing you is the Icon over here. Icon model is kind of iconic because it's not showing any system organizing or developing. It's kind of having it torn apart a little bit, and either that or making landfall in Texas, and that's why I consider it the iconic model, because it's kind of the outlier of this whole scenario, and definitely something to take a look at. But overall, the NHC is agreeing with the rest of the models, and here, and I am as well, here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But we will keep you updated with more information as time continues to go on. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And if you want to come hang out with us, or you want to just help us out with this tracking this tropical system, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is right over there. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.